Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Pakistan has made a big admission. Back in May, during India's Operation Sindoor, Indian missiles struck Pakistani military targets. The attack sent Islamabad into chaos. In just 30 seconds, BrahMos missiles hit Pakistani bases and Rawalpindi had no idea how to respond. The message to India is clear. Pakistan's nuclear bluff has been exposed. India does not need nukes to shake Pakistan's confidence. Precision strikes are enough. We'll bring you the full story. In the Ukraine war, Donald Trump has spoken to Vladimir Putin 6 times now since he took office, 6 times in the past few months, but still there is no ceasefire or peace deal, no progress. The US Congress has passed Trump's big, beautiful bill, as he calls it. We'll tell you what it means for the world. And why, on its 249th Independence Day, America feels like a hollow empire. How made-in-India cars are taking over Japanese roads. Why Turkey's Erdogan is wooing Bangladesh. How Thailand's search for a prime minister has turned into a game of musical chairs. Tech giants are cutting jobs to make room for AI, but AI is also creating new jobs. We'll tell you where. And how Dior is under fire for cultural theft after Prada. But first, as always, the headlines. In India, monsoons wreak havoc in the northern state of Himachal Pradesh. Heavy rains trigger cloudbursts, flash floods and landslides. More than 60 people have died. Many are still missing. Hundreds of houses have been destroyed and several bridges have been washed away. A heavy rain alert has been issued for the entire state till Monday. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar likely to visit China. He will attend the foreign ministers' meeting of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Recently, the Indian Defence Minister had also visited China. Jaishankar's visit comes as New Delhi and Beijing look to normalise ties. Russia becomes the first country to recognise the Taliban government. The Taliban, which came back to power in 2021, have called it a brave decision. China has also welcomed Moscow's move. In April, Russia had removed the Taliban from its list of banned terrorist groups. Egypt slams what it calls Ethiopia's unilateral actions over the Nile Dam project. This is after Addis Ababa announced that the multi-billion-dollar project was now complete. It will be formally inaugurated in September. This is Africa's largest hydroelectric project. Ethiopia, Egypt and the Sudan have been at loggerheads over it for years. And it's the second day of travel chaos in France as air traffic controllers stage a 2-day strike demanding better working conditions. Several flights have been cancelled, affecting thousands of people. Airports in Paris are among the worst hit.
This is the strike on the Noor Khan Airbase. ये नुकसान हो
30 seconds. That is all that Pakistan had. During Operation Sindoor, India launched BrahMos missiles towards Pakistani bases, and in that moment, Islamabad went into chaos. They had just 30 seconds to answer one terrifying question. Was this a nuclear strike? A top aide to Pakistan's Prime Minister has now admitted it, and he did so on live television. His name is Rana Sanaullah. He was talking about India's strikes on the Noor Khan Airbase in Pakistan. He described the fear, the utter confusion, and the paralysis. He said, when the Indian BrahMos came flying in, Pakistan had to choose: fire back and risk a nuclear war, or do nothing and wait. In the end, we all know that they did nothing. But those 30 seconds, they have exposed everything that Pakistan has been hiding. Islamabad may be claiming victory. It may be spinning tales about military deterrence. But now that mask has slipped, India's missile strikes did freak them out. India did have an upper hand, and as those missiles struck, Pakistan could do nothing. They were sitting ducks in this fight. That was the power of the BrahMos. And this is very important, this admission that has come from Pakistan, because Pakistan has built its entire military posture around nuclear weapons. For decades, it has poked and prodded India through terror proxies. Its messaging was always clear: hit us and we will go nuclear. That was the script. But Operation Sindoor has flipped that script. India did not escalate. Instead, India executed. New Delhi launched precision strikes. It hit terror camps in Pakistan. It hit military bases in Pakistan. And faced with this new playbook, Pakistan scrambled. Its nuclear shield felt more like a panic button. Now, let's be clear. It's not like Pakistan took this lying down. They did their usual stuff. They tried the usual drones and some retaliatory missiles. All of them were intercepted. Most were ineffective. Some did not even make it across the border. And then came the denial. First, Islamabad downplayed India's strikes. Then it denied the scale. And then it blamed Indian aggression. And finally, when satellite images surfaced, the tune changed. Pakistan claimed it had shown maturity. But what they really showed was helplessness. They had no idea what was coming at them. More importantly, they had no way to stop it, which brings us to the BrahMos. It's a joint project between India and Russia. It is named after two rivers, India's Brahmaputra and Russia's Moskva River, hence the name BrahMos. The BrahMos can travel at supersonic speeds of Mach 3. That's 3 times the speed of sound. It can hit targets up to 800 kilometers away. More importantly, the missile has its own computer. You feed the coordinates into its system and then just launch the missile. The BrahMos will hit its target. It has a 99.99% strike rate. And we saw that in this latest conflict. So as Pakistan details its panic 2 months later, the message was loud and clear. India does not need to go nuclear to teach a lesson. It doesn't even need to make a noise. It just took 30 seconds. And in those 30 seconds, Pakistan's entire strategy collapsed. For years, Pakistan has used nukes as a cover, hiding behind a red line. It thought that no one would cross. But India crossed it, strategically and precisely. And Islamabad panicked. So in the end, the only thing that detonated was the myth of Pakistan's deterrence. As the dust settles after 2 months, we know one thing. The battlefield was not just on the ground, it was in Pakistan's head, and the BrahMos was living there rent-free.
Very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin.
A phone call is routine in diplomacy, but between the presidents of Russia and America, it is quite rare. After the war in Ukraine began, the US downgraded ties with Russia. Then President Joe Biden refused to speak to Putin. Almost 3 years, 0 calls. But his successor has other ideas. Donald Trump has spoken to Vladimir Putin 6 times. 6 times since January this year. 6 times since he took office. The latest call was on Thursday morning. Neither side tried to keep it secret. Donald Trump announced the call on his social media account. Putin talked about it at a public event. He said he had to rush out to take the phone call. If not, Trump may be offended. Listen to this.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. I have a protocol event. A conversation with the U.S. president has been scheduled. I don't know if nothing will prevent.
A lot of hype leading up to it. But what exactly did the call deliver? Nothing. The conversation lasted around 1 hour and Trump had just one main agenda. He asked President Putin to end the war in Ukraine. And the response? Well, listen to Trump's own assessment.
We talked about a lot of things, including Iran, and we also talked about, as you know, the war with Ukraine, and I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about it. No, I didn't make any progress with him today at all.
So no progress was made, and it looks like Trump is losing patience. He later said that he was disappointed in the Russian president. He said Putin doesn't want to stop.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin because I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there. And I'm very disappointed. Well, it's not, I'm just saying, I don't think he's looking to stop. And that's too bad.
So what's the hold-up here? As always, the problem seems to be with Donald Trump. He wants to negotiate, which is good, but he doesn't seem to understand the situation. Russia has all the advantage right now, so any deal will have to be stacked in Moscow's favor. They want Ukraine to be neutral, they want Kiev to give up land, and they want to demilitarize Ukraine. If those terms are agreed to, Russia may end the war. If not, why would Putin stop? Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand something as basic as this. He cannot will a peace deal. He must work for it. Which brings us to the other side. Trump is speaking to Ukraine's President Zelensky as well, and he is under a lot of pressure. Hours after the Putin call, Russia launched a massive attack on Kiev. They fired 550 drones and 11 missiles, which makes it the largest aerial attack on Ukraine. Kiev says almost every district of the capital was hit. Just look at the aftermath. The casualties are still being assessed. Reports say at least one person was killed and 23 injured. Clearly, the idea is to put pressure on Kiev, and that too in the middle of an arms freeze. The US has halted some weapon shipments to Ukraine. Washington says it's part of a broader review. But Kiev is feeling the pinch. They depend on the US for air defenses and precision bombs. Both these things have been withheld by Donald Trump. Why? Well, the US president is blaming his predecessor, Joe Biden. He says the previous administration exhausted the stockpile, so he is trying to preserve it. Basically, America is running low on missiles. Therefore, they cannot share it with Ukraine. They cannot spare any for Ukraine at the moment. The question is, where do things go from here? Trump is certainly losing patience with Russia. He realizes that this deal will not be easy, but could that sentiment nudge him towards Ukraine? We haven't seen that either, because Trump is withholding weapons to Kiev. What about Zelensky? Well, he has showed no signs of flexibility. He has turned to Europe for military support, but Zelensky himself admits that Europe cannot plug the gap.
Of course, we count on continuation of American support, but there are some items which Europe, it's a pity, but which Europe doesn't have for today, especially when we speak about PAC-3. I mean that missiles for Patriot systems. This is crucial.
Europe's role could be crucial here. Militarily, they cannot do what America can, but politically, they could do better. Because Volodymyr Zelensky trusts Europe more than he trusts Trump. And we saw that White House clash in February. It told us how bad the equation is. But if Europe advises flexibility, Zelensky may listen. A, because he trusts them, and B, because that is his last resort. If Trump abandons him, Zelensky can turn to Europe. If Europe abandons, there is nowhere to turn to. But will Brussels advise flexibility? Well, we have seen some interesting signs recently. This week, French President Emmanuel Macron spoke to Putin. Again, this was a rare call. Macron and Putin had not spoken since 2022, so why did the French president reach out now? Is he also seeking negotiation? We certainly hope so. The West must realize that this is not a war of equals. Russia will not end the war for the sake of it. They need credible concessions. So Trump's ceasefire plan for Ukraine and Russia is stalled. But at home, he has scored a major win. His big, beautiful bill has been passed in the U.S. Congress.
There could be no better birthday present for America than the phenomenal victory we achieved just hours ago when Congress passed the one big, beautiful bill to make America great again.
He called it a birthday present for America. For Donald Trump, this is a big victory. This bill cements his agenda and fulfills key campaign promises. It boosts military spending, it ramps up funding for deportation, and it delivers tax cuts worth $4.5 trillion. If you're an American, all of this impacts you directly, of course. But why should the rest of the world care? Because this bill will have global consequences. It will affect investors and traders beyond American borders. It will impact factory workers who supply goods to the US, and it will pressure governments facing the threat of new tariffs. Let's break it down one by one, starting with the investors. If you have investments in the United States of America, or if you are planning to invest, how will Trump's bill affect you? Well, this bill is bad news for US-born investors. It will push US national debt by over $4 trillion. And that's a massive increase. Although it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. Trump's tax cuts and spending will swell America's debt burden. It will shrink the government's earnings, and it will make US debt riskier. As you may know, America's debt problem is already quite severe. The US now owes close to $37 trillion. That is the volume of their government's debt, almost $37 trillion. How did they get here? Well, for decades, American bonds, US bonds, were considered rock solid. They carried a AAA rating. But in the month of May, ratings agency Moody's downgraded them to AA1. It was a direct result of Trump's policies, his trade wars, and his unchecked spending. And now he's doubling down on those policies. This will make investors more cautious. So that is the impact on investors. Now let's talk about the workers, especially the overseas workers in America, those who work in the US and send money home. Trump's new bill will hit them hard, because Trump wants to tax their remittances. That's the money that they send home. It will now be taxed. The US will levy a 1% tax on remittances. It applies to cash, money orders, and cashier's checks. This provision targets all non-US citizens, and most of all, Indians, because India is the top recipient of remittances from the United States. Let me show you some numbers. Last year, India received $33 billion from the US. That's nearly 28% of all remittances received by India from the United States. Many families rely on this money. They need it to make ends meet. So with this new tax, their monthly budgets would take a hit. And why just Indian families? This move could impact millions of workers from around the globe, from countries like Mexico, China, the Philippines, France, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. They will all be impacted. Next, the clean energy hawks. They too will be hit by the bill, because Trump is rolling back several tax concessions to this industry. He's ending tax cuts on renewable energy. New rules are being introduced, making it harder for companies to claim tax breaks. This bill also ends tax breaks on EV purchases, something that Elon Musk has been a vocal critic of. Trump and Musk have traded insults over this decision. Musk has called this bill, and I'm quoting, insane and destructive. Despite the criticism, President Trump has pushed forward with his plans. Again, its impact goes beyond America. Tax credits helped EV makers like Tesla thrive. They helped them grow and remain competitive. Ending these concessions can hurt their business, perhaps even their profit margins. This could also slow down their expansion plans, making companies like Tesla think twice before entering newer markets like India. They may now demand significant concessions for a large investment. So these three broad categories will be the key losers: investors, workers, and clean energy hawks. Now let's tell you who stands to gain from this bill. Major American business groups. They are the winners. They have received significant concessions on equipment purchases and on research and development spending, R&D spending. The makers of semiconductor chips will also benefit. If they make more chips in America, they will get tax breaks. Basically, Trump is keeping his promises to big business in the US. His big, beautiful bill is good for America's corporate giants. For the rest of the world, not so much. It's a big day in the United States. The country is celebrating its Independence Day, and this one is special because it kicks off an year-long festival. You see, 2026 marks 250 years of American independence. So President Donald Trump has big plans. He wants to organize multiple events leading up to the next 4th of July, and one of them is a UFC fight. Now, UFC stands for Ultimate Fighting Championship. It's basically a martial arts league. And guess where this fight is going to happen? Not in Las Vegas, not in New York. President Trump wants it at the White House.
We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this, on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little... We're not. Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have...
Forget somber reflection. Trump wants to see men and women beat each other to pulp. And the absurdity does not end here. We just told you about Trump's big, beautiful bill. He wants a fly past as he signs it. And not just any fly past. This one will include lethal warplanes, the B-2 bomber, the F-35 fighter jet, and the F-22 Raptor. These planes will fly over the White House as the president signs the bill. Just a casual $2 million fly past. We hope it's better than his military parade last month, because that was a snooze fest. Now, we've heard people talk about celebrating the 4th of July, but what exactly are they celebrating? The loss of allies? The school shootings? The abortion bans? Or the global humiliations? Let's start with the last one. In February, Donald Trump hosted Ukraine's president at the White House. It was supposed to be a meeting. Instead, it became a shouting match. The whole world watched as Trump and his officials ganged up on their guest.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're
doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
He did the same to Europe. Trump officials accused Europe of killing free speech. They mocked them for depending on the United States. Well, congratulations. Europe is moving away from Washington. It has unveiled a multi-billion-dollar plan for self-defense. Of course, it wasn't all bad. Trump gained a few allies on the way too, like former Al-Qaeda terrorist Ahmad al-Shara. He used to be sanctioned by the United Nations, but after capturing power in Syria, Trump decided to meet him, and his assessment? That al-Shara was a good-looking guy.
Right, I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. What happens? Trump has. Of course, Trump has fighter.
Does that worry you?
But he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
Now we come to affairs at home. Americans continue to pour money into their cherished human right, not health care or housing. I'm talking about guns. This year, 23 school shootings have been reported so far. In 2024, this number stood at 83. The year before, it was 80. And before that, it was 74. Gun deaths are extremely common in the United States of America. 80% of all murders in America are linked to guns. In Britain, it's just 4%. In Australia, it's 11%. And in the so-called 51st state, Canada, it's 50%. Your child is not safe at school. You are not safe in grocery stores. But do not worry. At least you can celebrate 250 years of freedom. Let's also talk about abortion rights. The procedure is banned or curbed in 19 American states. And the result is this. A 13-year-old rape victim gave birth last year. This happened in the state of Mississippi. Almost all abortions are banned in that state. So a teenage rape victim, 13 years old, was forced to give birth. And this is not a one-off. Here's another case from 2022. A 10-year-old rape victim was denied abortion in her state. She had to travel to a different state for the procedure. Apparently, this is pro-life. You can't respect an actual human being, but you will protect a fetus. And this has only worsened in the last few years. More states have tightened their abortion laws in the United States. Again, do not worry. At least you've been free for 250 years. And finally, look at the national debt. As of now, America's debt stands at almost $37 trillion. They spend $1 trillion on interests alone. It's basically a ticking time bomb. But like I said, do not worry. Maybe the debt will magically reset after 250 years. The fact is, America has little to celebrate. Their neighbors hate them. Their kids are unsafe in school. Their women cannot control their bodies. Their allies are striking out alone. And all of this is despite them being the most powerful country in the world. So this July 4th, here's our suggestion. Focus on the wins. So what if Americans can't pay medical bills? At least they have the Gulf of America instead of Mexico. Now let's talk about Japan. Japan is witnessing a quiet auto revolution. Indian cars are rapidly making their presence felt on the streets of Japan. Last month, Suzuki Motor became Japan's biggest car importer. They achieved this feat with vehicles built in India. Suzuki shipped nearly 4,800 cars last month. This is a 230-fold jump compared to last year. At the heart of this success are compact, affordable SUVs. These were built for Indian roads, but now they are winning hearts of customers in Japan, so much so that one of the cars drew 50,000 pre-orders even before its launch. There was a time when Japan was the gold standard for craftsmanship and for quality in the eyes of Indians. Today, Japan is finding that same quality in Indian cars. So why are Japanese buyers choosing Indian cars? Because they're affordable, reliable, and perfectly suited to local needs. Here's a report.
In June, something extraordinary happened. Suzuki Motor became Japan's biggest car importer. It surpassed Mercedes-Benz and did it with cars built in India. Suzuki imported nearly 4,800 vehicles into Japan last month. That's a staggering 230 times more than last year. And this is just the start. The hero of this story is this car, the Jimny Nomad. A compact SUV made in India. It is priced at just over $18,000. The car drew 50,000 pre-orders before it even hit showrooms. There was so much demand that Suzuki was forced to halt orders in 4 days. The company is now ramping up production in India to catch up. Suzuki has added another made-in-India SUV, the Fronx, to its lineup. Suzuki is not alone. Honda, too, is banking on cars product in India. Its WRV SUV, produced in India, helped boost Honda's imports by 22 times last year. These are not isolated success stories. They are part of a bigger trend. India is quietly rising as car manufacturing powerhouse. So why are Japanese drivers choosing Indian cars? For one reason alone: they don't care where the car is made, as long as it delivers. And these cars deliver. They are affordable, compact, and reliable. They are fit for Japanese roads and lifestyles. They outperform expectations, and they are redefining Japan's auto market. While American brands like GM and Ford struggle to adapt, India's cars are already in Japan. The lesson is clear. Indian manufacturing is competing and winning in one of the most demanding markets in the world. And this success is rooted in a deeper strategy. Suzuki has spent decades building capacity in India. It invested in local talent and efficient production lines. Low costs and skilled workers have given India an edge. And now, the results are showing, not just in export numbers, but in global respect. Suzuki is pursuing the Indian car market with the same aggressiveness. The company aims to control half of India's car market by 2030. It expects India's auto sales to hit 20 million a year by 2047. The company has the right pieces to achieve this goal. Already, made-in-India cars are winning aboard. This success is also reflected in export numbers. The Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers came up with some data. India's car exports to Japan crossed $616 million in the first 9 months of 2024 to 25. That's nearly 3 times from the previous year. Mexico, Australia, and South Africa are currently the top 4 export markets for this car. Alongside Japan, markets like Mexico, Australia, and South Africa are also opening up for cars like the Jimny. This success is proof that India can build world-class products. The wheels of change are turning. They started in India, and now they're rolling all the way to Japan and beyond.
Bangladesh is provoking India again. They have invited New Delhi's rival into their house. On second thoughts, that doesn't really narrow the pool. Dhaka has invited a lot of Indian rivals. So let me specify which one. Turkey. Reports say a top Turkish defense executive will visit Dhaka next week. His name is Haluk Gergun, and he heads Turkey's defense industry agency. It's basically a government body. It oversees the country's defense projects. Now, Gergun is expected to visit Dhaka on July 8th. He's slated to meet the chief advisor, Mohammad Yunus. He will also meet the 3 service chiefs of Bangladesh. And what's his mission? To gain a foothold in Bangladesh. Dhaka is setting up 2 defense corridors in the country, in Chittagong and in Narayanganj. They are hoping that Turkey will help them out with this, mainly with funds and technology. And this is not happening all of a sudden. It was always building up to this. Last year, Mohammad Yunus met President Erdogan at the COP summit. Erdogan invited Yunus to Turkey. He also offered his full support to Dhaka. Surprisingly, jet setter Yunus has not taken up the offer to visit Turkey, but his foreign minister did go. He travelled to Ankara in April this year, and there he talked about defence cooperation. He called it a win-win opportunity. But what sort of cooperation are we talking about here? Well, the focus is on defence corridors, meaning the plan is to build Turkish weapons in Bangladesh, basically setting up factories. If this goes ahead, it's a big worry for India. Obviously, the weapons won't just be exported. They will be bought by Bangladesh too. Some deals are already in the pipeline. Reports say Dhaka is thinking about buying Turkish tanks. The question is, how should India see these deals? Well, we know that Turkey is no friend of ours. They supported and armed Pakistan against us. They constantly meddle in Kashmir. So Turkey is a national security challenge as far as India is concerned. Recently, Dhaka has become one too. Yunus has picked multiple fights with India. He has cozied up to Pakistan and China. So a nexus between Turkey and Bangladesh is worrying for New Delhi. Plus, Erdogan has no business here. Turkey is not a country in South Asia. They do not have any permanent assets or diaspora in this region. Then why is Erdogan so interested? And it's not just Bangladesh. Erdogan is selling weapons to the Maldives as well. Their president, Mohammad Muizzu, travelled to Ankara in 2023. The next year, he bought drones from Turkey. So clearly, there is a pattern. Erdogan is arming India's neighbouring countries. What is his end goal here? It looks more ideological than strategic. India and Turkey have no border disputes. We have no rivers to share. We have no ancient ethnic rivalry. So the reason appears to be purely ideological. Erdogan has long tried to create an Islamist coalition, and his choices reflect that. Pakistan is an Islamic country with a fanatic army chief. Muizzu ran an Islamist election campaign in the Maldives, and in Dhaka, Islamist forces are slowly capturing power. So ideology is a clear driving factor for Turkey. The question is, how can India respond? Well, the situation in Bangladesh could change next year. Elections are scheduled for April 2026. Perhaps a new elected government will reset ties. Even if it doesn't, it cannot be worse than Mohammad Yunus. In the Maldives, there seems to have been some recalibration. Muizzu has invited Prime Minister Modi for a visit. He wants the Indian Prime Minister to be the chief guest for the Maldivian Independence Day. So that's one thing that India can do. Be patient and win over the neighbours. Secondly, New Delhi can go on the offensive. If Turkey arms India's neighbours, India can arm Turkey's neighbours. In fact, this is already happening. New Delhi has sold weapons to Armenia. It is also looking to sell arms to Cyprus. Now, Cyprus is a Mediterranean island. The northern part is ruled by a Turkey-backed regime. The south is the globally recognized Cyprus. And India is backing the south now. Chances are this Turkish challenge won't disappear quickly. Erdogan is a wily customer. He is known for stirring trouble on foreign shores. India must be ready for his dirty tricks. Just off the coast of Venezuela, you will find a twin island nation called Trinidad and Tobago. Its population is smaller than Goa, but its history stretches all the way to Bihar. And this week, Trinidad looked and sounded a lot like India. There were Bhojpuri songs, dhol beats, ministers in kurtas and food served on traditional sohari leaves. Yesterday, the Indian Prime Minister landed in the island nation. But Prime Minister Modi's visit to Trinidad and Tobago was no ordinary diplomatic trip. It was a celebration of the two intertwined cultures. Our next report tells you more.
That's Trinidad and Tobago, a twin-island Caribbean nation with a population smaller than Goa. If you squint hard enough, you might just see Patna. No, really, there's a Patna street in Trinidad. And yesterday it was echoing with the sound of Bhojpuri chautal and dhol beats. India's Prime Minister landed in Port of Spain for a diplomatic stop, but it felt less like a foreign visit and more like a homecoming. To understand how this visit to Trinidad and Tobago matters, you have to go back, way back, to 1845. That was the year that Fatel Razak sailed from Kolkata, then called Calcutta, carrying 225 indentured Indian labourers. It took them to a sugarcane plantation in what was then a British colony. Over the next few decades, nearly 150,000 Indians followed. Many from Bhojpuri-speaking regions in Bihar and eastern Uttar Pradesh. They brought with them their language, food, religion, and resilience. What they didn't bring, they rebuilt from memory. Today, nearly 45% of Trinidad and Tobago's population is of Indian origin. Many still speak a version of Bhojpuri. They celebrate Diwali and worship at Hindu temples. PM Modi is the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Trinidad and Tobago since 1999. This visit focused on trade, energy, technology and culture. PM Modi received the Order of Trinidad and Tobago, the highest honour of the country. He also held talks with President Christine Karla Kangaloo and Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisisar. He even called the PM Bihar ki beti, nodding to her roots in Buxar district. PM Modi also gifted her an Ayodhya temple replica and holy water from the Saryu river.
प्रधानमंत्री कमला जी के पूर्वज बिहार के बक्सर में रहा करते थे। कमला जी स्वयं वहां जाकर भी आई है। लोग इन्हें बिहार की बेटी मानते हैं। बिहार की विरासत भारत के साथ ही दुनिया का भी गौरव है। बिहार ने सदियों पहले दुनिया को ऐसे अनेक विषयों में नई दिशा दिखाई थी। मुझे विश्वास है 21वीं सदी की दुनिया के लिए भी बिहार की धरती से नई प्रेरणाएं, नए अवसर निकलेंगे।
At a state dinner, the Prime Minister was served on sahari leaves. That is traditional Bhojpuri-style plates made from sal leaves, still used at weddings and religious events in Bihar. So the food was Indian, the leaf was Bhojpuri, and the symbolism was unmistakable. But beyond the pageantry, the visit had strategic undertones. Trinidad and Tobago, with its booming energy sector, is one of the most developed economies in the Caribbean. It's also a crucial gateway to Latin America and a bridge to the African diaspora. India and Trinidad already share a most favoured nation trade agreement. Bilateral trade crossed $368 million in 2023-2024. India exports cars, pharmaceuticals, plastics. It exports fuels, bitumen and aluminium. Earlier this year, Trinidad and Tobago became the first Caribbean nation to adopt India's Unified Payments Interface, or UPI. And now, sixth-generation Indian origin citizens in Trinidad can apply for OCI cards. That is the Overseas Citizenship of India cards. all thanks to a policy announced during Modi's visit.
And my very first engagement is with the Indian community here. It feels completely natural. After all, we are part of one family. The journey of the Indian community in Trinidad and Tobago is about courage. The circumstances your ancestors faced would have broken even the strongest spirits, but they faced hardships with hope.
So Trinidad and Tobago may be far away from Patna, but during Modi's visit, it didn't feel like it. It felt like a full circle moment, 179 years in the making. For Trinidad, it was recognition, but for India, it was a reunion.
Who doesn't like musical chairs? Maybe the people of Thailand. Because this week, their government has been acing the game. They've had 3 prime ministers in 3 days. The upheaval began on Tuesday. Thai leader Paetongtarn Shinawatra was suspended, so the deputy prime minister took over, but only for a day. And now Thailand has appointed another acting prime minister, Phumtham Vechayachai. He is a former defense minister and a political heavyweight, and now he has taken over the reins of the country. But it's not game over for Paetongtarn Shinawatra yet. Today, Thailand has sworn in a new cabinet. New cabinet members took oath today, and guess who's part of this group? Paetongtarn as the new culture minister. So what's behind this political chaos, and what does it mean for Thailand? Here's a report.
Thailand is not new to long stretches of political instability. In recent years, it has been mired in a cycle of coups and protests. But now, the country has plunged into fresh political turmoil. And for its citizens, this is not just frustrating, it is also confusing. Thailand has appointed a new acting prime minister. The country has had 3 leaders in as many days. First, Paetongtarn Shinawatra. The 38-year-old scion of a powerful political dynasty is currently fighting for her political survival less than a year after taking office. She was suspended by the Constitutional Court on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Deputy Prime Minister Surya Jungrungriangkit took charge, but he only carried out the role for 1 day. And on Thursday, Thailand ushered in the appointment of its second interim Prime Minister, Interior Minister Phumtham Vechayachai. He is a former defense minister and a political heavyweight in the country. He is also a long-time ally of Paetongtarn's father, former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. And now, he is the new acting Prime Minister of Thailand. But what's behind this political upheaval? One phone call. But the roots of the crisis lie in border tensions with Cambodia. Over the decades, they have flared up occasionally. Just as they did after a brief skirmish in May. A Cambodian soldier was killed, and relations between the 2 countries quickly deteriorated. In June, Paetongtarn had a private call with Cambodian leader, Hun Senator, but later, he made the call public. And this fueled massive backlash and protests. In the call, Paetongtarn called Hun Sen uncle, while being disparaging of her own country's powerful military. This set off an uproar in Thailand, from calls for her to resign, to a major party's defection from her governing coalition. She apologized. But the protests continued, and fears of a coup grew. So a group of senators filed a petition with the Constitutional Court, accusing her of violating ethics and seeking her removal. And on Tuesday, the court agreed and suspended her with immediate effect.
ผลคำวินิจฉัยออกมาแล้วนะคะดิฉันก็ขอน้อมรับ
I respectfully accept the court's decision, and from this moment, I will cease performing my duties. I want to apologize to people who are upset by all of this. I want to confirm again that my intention was truly for the nation.
So is it game over for P. Tongtan? Not necessarily. An investigation into the incident is still underway. Plus, before her suspension began, P. Tongtan appointed herself as culture minister in the new cabinet. And yesterday, Thailand swore in the new cabinet members. So P. Tongtan has returned to the cabinet as part of the new crew. But even if she manages to gain more power, can she survive this rocking boat? After all, Thailand is battling a range of crises.
The economy is languishing. Thai people are unhappy. I think that young people especially don't see a good future ahead. Pa Tongtan, Thaksin, all this, his trial, her trial, and then the interim government, this is a very choppy, topsy-turvy, day-to-day dynamics.
So amid an assortment of troubles, P. Tongtan's phone call was the last straw. She has clawed her way back into the cabinet. But can she find her way back to the top of Thai politics?
$9,000 people. That's 4% of Microsoft's global workforce, and the tech giant is now laying them off. These are engineers, marketers, designers, developers, and support staff. No one has been spared across teams and continents. Microsoft is handing them pink slips. So what's going on? Why is a trillion-dollar company suddenly trimming headcount? Well, Microsoft has just two words for you. Artificial intelligence. The company is going all in on AI. It is pouring billions, nearly $80 billion, $80 billion into data centers. It's rewiring its entire future around machines. And the official line? These layoffs are a reset. Microsoft says it is positioning the company for success. If you're walking into tech right now, it's hard not to feel like the floor is shifting. Because Microsoft is not alone. Google, Amazon, Meta, they've all gone through rounds of layoffs. And in every statement, one reason keeps showing up. Artificial intelligence. It's the new gospel and the new scapegoat. Now, it's no surprise that AI is killing jobs. But here's the other side of the story. Artificial intelligence is also creating jobs. According to the World Economic Forum, AI may displace 9 million jobs by 2030, but it could also create 11 million new ones. So that's a net positive, at least on paper. AI specialist roles have grown by 74% in the past 4 years, 74% growth. But what kind of jobs is AI creating? Well, there are a few categories that we can list out. The first is the builders, AI engineers, ML developers, data scientists, people who make the machines. Then there are the interpreters, product managers, UX designers, prompt writers. They translate between human need and machine logic. Then there are the overseers, cybersecurity experts and AI auditors, people who guard and guide the machines. On number 4 are the creators, copywriters for chatbots, AI storytellers, marketing strategists. And finally, there are the hybrids, people who don't work on AI but work with it. Healthcare professionals doing AI research, financial analysts testing AI tools, teachers integrating AI into learning. Now, if you're watching this and quietly Googling how to become a prompt engineer, trust me, you're not alone. And I know it sounds very daunting. You spend years on a career ladder, suddenly the ladder is an escalator, and you aren't even invited to climb it. That is a scary thought. But you need to adapt with the changing time. That's the only option, really. So here are some tips that experts swear by. 1. Learn AI fundamentals. You don't need to become a machine learning expert, but understanding what AI is will help you. Number 2, pick up data literacy. Learn how to read and interpret data. Number 3, develop soft skills that bots cannot mimic. Emotional intelligence, storytelling, ethics, critical thinking, these are all still human domains. Number 4, consider hybrid roles. If you're a writer, learn how to use AI tools to scale ideas. If you're a designer, figure out how to collaborate with AI art generators. If you're in healthcare, understand how AI can assist diagnosis. And 5, keep learning. Take online courses, attend data science boot camps. Make sure your skills are evolving. And if you're still unsure, remember one core question. What do you bring to the table that a machine cannot? If you can answer that question, you'll be just fine. And if you can't, well, you've got about a few years to figure it out. The good news is you still have time to adapt. The bad news is so does the machine, and the race has already begun. Western high fashion has a hobby. It loves to borrow from Indian craft, create pieces that cost a bomb, showcase them on the runway, but without the credit, the acknowledgement, or the backstory. A few days ago, Prada models trotted down the runway wearing Kolhapuri chappals. And now there is a new controversy. Dior has featured a coat. It costs $2,000. It's about 1.7 crore rupees for a coat. This coat has been embroidered using the Mukesh technique. This is a traditional Indian embroidery method that goes back centuries. Dior allegedly deployed a dozen Indian artisans to make the coat, and yet, no credit, just a hefty price tag. Here's a report.
At Milan Fashion Week, models strutted down the runway in Prada's open-toe leather sandals. And thousands of kilometers away in India, the show was met with shock and outrage. These Prada sandals screamed Kolhapuri Chapel. The handcrafted leather slippers, with cultural roots in Maharashtra and Karnataka. Now, being sold for $1,200 a pair by the luxury brand. But unfortunately, this is not an isolated case. Amid the Prada Kolhapuri fiasco, we now have Dior joining the club. Recently, Jonathan Anderson was appointed the creative director of French luxury house Christian Dior. He made his debut a few days ago at Paris Fashion Week. The show was packed with A-listers, so naturally it went viral. But amid the buzz, one couture piece caught people's eye on social media. A stunning gold and ivory coat with an intricate pattern. You see that beautiful embroidery? That's no luxe French handiwork. That's Mukesh. Mukesh is a traditional metal embroidery technique from India, where tiny metal wires of silver and gold are twisted and embroidered into the fabric to create delicate patterns. This craft originated in Lucknow centuries ago, where it continues to be practiced by a few skilled craftsmen. But according to social media sleuths, Dior has snatched this craft from Lucknow's narrow streets and plopped it on the runway. Of course, without due credit, but with a hefty price tag. The coat costs $200,000, or about 1.7 crore rupees. And do you know what's worse? Reportedly, Dior deployed 12 Indian artisans who worked for more than a month to finish this coat. Yet no nod to India, no acknowledgement of the traditional craft, and no credit to the artisans. After all, this is not Dior's first rodeo. In 2018, a Delhi-based studio called People Tree accused the Dior of copying one of their block prints. Or look at this outfit. As the young would say, it is giving major sus vibes. Or should we say Shehbaz vibes complete with a dupatta? Or shall we say Scandinavian scarf? But then again, Western luxury brands have a long history of quote-unquote borrowing from India. Like this so-called Indie turban by Gucci, priced at about $800. This accessory caused a major controversy in 2019. This is not just appropriation, but also cultural insensitivity towards Sikhism, where the turban holds sacred value. After all, cultural sentiments are rarely a concern when high fashion goes low. They can borrow and steal, but critics must beg for the credits, which is exactly what we are witnessing with Prada. After a massive backlash against their Kolhapuri fakes, Prada has finally accepted that the sandals were indeed inspired by Indian handicrafts. And amid this half-hearted credit throwaway parade, a public interest litigation has been filed against the brand in an Indian high court. demanding compensation and legal protection for artisans and their craft. But this is a clear example of luxury brands exploiting cultural heritage, sidelining the creators, erasing generations of stories and labor, and replacing them with hashtags without so much as a shout-out. Sari blouses quickly turn into Ibiza summer tops. Kurtas are strappy dresses, and dupatta wearers are Scandi girls. This is not inspiration. It is not appreciation. It is appropriation.
There's a new vigilante in the tech world. He sneaks upon you, steals your top talent, and disappears into the darkness. His name is Mark Zuckerberg. The Meta CEO is assembling the Avengers of AI. They're not fighting Thanos, but they could be creating a super villain. What is called artificial general intelligence, the pinnacle of AI research. Just one problem though, Zuckerberg is not plucking these people from universities or LinkedIn. He is poaching them from rivals, that too with eye-watering salary offers. Social media has been tracking Zuckerberg's stealth moves, and let's just say they are not impressed. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Wildfires continue to spread in Turkey's Izmir, killing one person. Archaeologists in Peru unveil a 3,500-year-old city. And an electric flying taxi prototype takes off in the UK. Finally, we are taking you back in history on this day in 1924. The Caesar salad was invented in Mexico by an Italian-American restaurant owner. During busy hours, he improvised the dish with what he had, mainly lettuce, garlic, croutons, parmesan, eggs and olive oil. What was a kitchen improvisation is now a global classic. Over 1 billion Caesar salads are eaten globally every year. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend.